podcast is brought to you by the Association for Coaching, the world's leading international professional body which is advancing coaching in business and society worldwide. I'm your host, Simone Sweeney, and in this new series, Getting Started as a Coach, I'm excited to introduce you to experts and coaching thought leaders who will share their passion and experience to help new and aspiring coaches get the insight and information they need to understand the industry, make more informed decisions, and successfully start out in the world of coaching. Welcome to another episode of Getting Started as a Coach with me, Simone Sweeney. Today, I'm joined by Mark Crossfield, who will be a familiar voice to those of you who are regular listeners to the AC's podcast. He's just completed a fantastic series on career coaching, so make sure you catch that on the podcast channel. Mark is an accredited executive coach and licensed career coach, helping professionals to find their mojo, achieve career clarity, and flourish at work through transformation coaching. Mark is also a podcast host with his show, Your Bravo Career, and regularly shares his expertise to inspire others to succeed. His dedication to transformation coaching has made him a trusted expert sought after by those seeking career fulfillment and success. As a chartered manager and chartered civil engineer, Mark worked in local government for 28 years, most of that time as a service manager and using staff coaching as an instrument for change. Mark's experience, as well as his reflective nature, make him a wonderful guest as I explore what it takes to get started in coaching. Mark and I will explore topics like how to attract clients and also market yourself as a coach. But we also won't shy away from the sometimes provocative themes of niching, pricing, and to what degree you should bring your authentic self to your coaching practice. Welcome, Mark. Delighted to have you with me today.
It's great to be here, Simone. Thank you for the invitation, for that great introduction. And what's it like in the hot seat? Are you enjoying hosting this series so far?
I am. It's been such a wonderful learning journey. I've met so many wonderful coaches and coaching thought leaders who have shared so much insight with me. But it's also been a really wonderful challenge, from learning the technical ropes to making those connections with guests and building the network to support it and the research. So it's been really wonderful. And I've taken a lot of inspiration from your recommendations as well as your podcast. So I'm really happy to be involved. It's been really a truly great experience at this early stage of my coaching journey.
Great. Well, it's great to be here.
So I'm going to start and take a leaf from your own book and ask a question that I've been asking everyone who's joining me as a guest. So we'll start with, how do you define coaching?
Yeah, because there's so many definitions of coaching, aren't there? And well, coaching is a conversation first, isn't it? And it's a collaborative and goal-orientated process. It's about asking those powerful questions and active listening to help your client to achieve that goal. It's also about helping clients to see what they can't see at first and helping them to unlock their potential. Because when it comes down to it, career coaching clients are usually asking themselves things like, who am I? What do I want in my career? What options are there? And how can I get clear and get unstuck? So my job, and I suppose my definition of my job as a career coach, is to support clients answer these questions and work with them to create a plan to find a job they will love and ultimately have a great career.
I love how you define that as a partnership and the importance of the relationship and the guiding element of coaching. And I know that definition will add another rich dimension to what, previous guests and those still to come are sharing. So thank you for giving us your view on that. And I'm curious that you had a long career working in civil engineering, and then you trained as a coach and kept working in that corporate path for a while. What was it that actually drew you to coaching, both initially and then was the catalyst for change for that to be your full-time focus?
Yeah, because as long as I can remember, I've always been interested in personal development. I've always read widely, and I'm always very interested in personal development. And when I started working in civil engineering, I brought some of that interest to my work. So I actually I trained to be a coach early in my career, and I set up a mentoring program within the organisation. And I took a lot of interest in trying to get the best out of people, trying to develop people, trying to help people in their career. And I got to a point where I probably enjoyed that more than the actual day job, actually. So, the inclination to coach was there from an early stage. And I think there's something in me that just really relishes the idea of helping people to find satisfying and fulfilling work. I don't know if you ever saw us on TV, but there used to be a TV program called The Undercover Boss. And the premise was that it was a relatively big organization normally. The chief executive would go undercover within the organization, in some generally low-paid role, so that he or she could work amongst the workforce and learn about what works and what doesn't work within the organization, but also to discover hidden talent and help people to move through the organization that perhaps were stuck. And I used to love that program. And I used to love the bit in particular where the boss would find someone that was basically hidden talent. They'd been hiding somewhere in the organization. They'd been stuck somewhere. They'd not been allowed to move on. And suddenly there was this realization this person really enhanced the organization. And I don't know, I used to even get tearful at that point in the program. It seems weird to be, crying over something like that. But that I think is how I'm wired. I'm wired to think about and help people to make the best of their own career. And so many of us live unsatisfying careers and jobs. And because of that, lives. That's such a shame. So I want to try and help as many people as I can to, moving to more satisfying positions, enjoy their work and, have a great career. So that's where it came from. And then to make it even more personal, my career continued in civil engineering, probably, for nearly 3 decades, actually. And I got to the point where my wife and I had gone on holiday. We'd gone to New York, actually. And I was walking around and I was feeling very happy about the holiday. I was feeling, pretty euphoric about things. And I remember thinking, I've never felt this happy at work for a very long time. And it really dawned on me then that I had to make a change in my career. I had to go back and I had to do something about that. And I call that my Manhattan moment now, that I had this dawning realization that I just had to change things up. So within probably about a year, I'd left that organization to start my own coaching business and, to help people that were wanting to change their career. Because what I found was when I came back from New York, there wasn't really anybody that particularly could help me right then. I couldn't find anybody anyway. And I hadn't been able to find anybody for the decade or so before. And I wanted to be that person that people could find so they could move it through their career challenges, get unstuck and move to something much more satisfying. So that's really the background of how I became a career coach.
It's so nice to hear the purpose-led direction for you, and what was the catalyst into coaching initially, but then how you had your Manhattan moment and your own reflection led you towards making it your main focus to support people in career transition and also finding what is a great fit for them. So it's a great example of how you're led to coaching through many different pathways. And I'm curious to what you see are some of the foundations for success in coaching, either based on your experience or the work you've done so far.
Yeah. And I think I might say some things that are slightly controversial in this interview, in so much as of all the guests you've got on the series, I've not listened to any of these, of course, everybody will have their own opinion, and that's fine. And I think for new coaches listening, it's important that they try these things on for themselves and think about what these things mean to them, but actually create their own version of these answers. And my version of this answer, in terms of the foundations of success, they do relate to coaching and coaching skills and being good at coaching being important. But I don't think that's everything. I don't even think it's the most important thing to be a good coach. And that might be the controversial bit, because I think there's some other things that, if you don't get right, mean that you will not be able to continue to practice successfully. And I'm talking about things like being effective in terms of your own organization and time management. That is one of the fundamental things to get right, because if you don't organize yourself and plan your time, quite quickly you can get disorganized. You can start missing appointments and meetings. You don't plan your time wisely, so you don't actually think ahead of things you need to do. So that effective organization and time planning is one thing. I think another one, and I think this is a biggie, is relationship management. So really thinking about the relationships that you have with potential clients, existing clients, previous clients, people that might become clients, and then all those other people that are not clients, that are just in your circle, in your network. So building relationships with those people really does help you to, A, feel connected, so you feel connected to the bigger picture, but also it means that they know who you are, and that network does work for you as well in terms of bringing you business. A lot of my work actually does come through my network. And I think that's one of the main things that new coaches perhaps don't realize, that they often think of all the other ways they can get clients, but your network and the relationships you build are really important. So I think that is a second thing. I think it's really important to define your niche. We can perhaps develop on that theme later. But I think finally, the last thing I want to say in terms of foundations for success is about setting yourself up so that you enjoy your work, so it becomes enjoyable. And if you don't enjoy it, it's very difficult to sustain the practice. So you've got to lean into the things you enjoy about being a coach or a career coach and do those things. So do the things that you enjoy doing. And if there's things you don't enjoy doing, see whether either you don't need to do them. Sometimes you don't need to do the things that you think you need to do, or can you find somebody else to do them? So I'll give you a good example of that. There have been a couple of occasions where in my coaching, I have a spreadsheet which I use as part of the questionnaire I send out to my clients. I wanted to revamp this questionnaire, and there's quite a lot of Excel formulas that go into the spreadsheet. And I tried for a couple of hours to try and get all these formulas right. And I thought, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? So in the end, I got a virtual support assistant to do the work for me. And it was pretty inexpensive. I mean, I'm talking probably, it was something like $15 I paid for them to redo a spreadsheet with the right formulas, make it work properly. And that saved me probably half a day. So you do have to use other people to support you so you can focus on the things you like doing best. So ultimately, you can enjoy the work of being a career coach.
I think that's such an important thing for our listeners to hear, and for me as well as a newer coach to understand, that keeping that eye on your ultimate kind of pleasure from the work is important, but also it's important for you to recognize where your time or your skills are best used so that you're not spinning wheels on things that are not adding incremental value or not bringing you pleasure, or both of those are important aspects, and outsourcing where needed. And I'm going to make a mental bookmark to come back and for us to talk about some of the tools later in the episode, because I think you can give us some great practical guidance on some things that a coach can use to make their work more efficient and more effective. So you mentioned niching earlier, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment, but as a kind of wider view lens to eventually looking at that, is new coaches often struggle with positioning themselves in a natural way or an authentic way, particularly in what can be seen as quite a saturated space, whether that's executive coaching or the more broad category of life coaching, or into areas like your specialty of career coaching. What's been your experience about finding the balance in that positioning? Are there any tips or insight you can offer to help people still be themselves while getting clear on what their proposition should be?
That's a very good question. It's very much a personal matter, of course, and it does depend on how you find your clients. But to find clients, they've got to know about you. That's the first thing. So if they don't know about you, they can't find you. So I think you have to put yourself out there. I think that's one of the things that is a given when it comes to being a coach. But knowing is not always enough. Clients need to feel they like you and they can trust you. So that's where we get the know, like, trust formula from. So first they find you, then they like you, and then they trust you. So you need to share enough to build trust, but maintain professionalism. We're talking about the coaching sessions, then sharing some personal experiences can enhance the coaching experience by building trust and demonstrating authenticity. So when you get into the coaching themselves, in terms of how much you share, that's a different question. But I think in terms of putting yourself out there, I think you have to make a decision about what it is you want to share. And I think it does depend on the type of coach you are. So I do talk about my own situation, my backstory about how I got into coaching. So I think that does bring people to me because people recognize that they can see that in themselves. So they want to have a conversation with me. So I think it is about thinking, does your story help you to share your message? If it does, I think it's worth sharing within limits. Obviously, you don't want to overshare. And like I say, it is very personal, this, but I think it is good to share as much as you can and as much as you're comfortable with, on social media and with potential clients, because that definitely does make you more likable, more authentic. And ultimately, it's people want to be able to trust you. And those sorts of experiences do definitely help them to trust you.
That definitely goes back to your definition of coaching and the importance of that partnership, the relationship as being a kind of critical and foundational element to any coaching practice. I'm curious now to go back to niching. So what is niching? A lot of people will have heard it, but may not understand what it is. So can you explain to us what it is and when it can be useful?
Yeah, sure. So niching is ultimately specializing in a specific coaching area. So, you start niching when you have a clear passion and an expertise in my book. So if you think about my own example of career coaching. So career coaching in itself is already a smaller subsection of coaching, but I also focus on mid-career professionals, which is an even smaller subsection. And my speciality is mid-career professionals who are stuck in their career. So there's an even tighter niche there, isn't there? So that is how I've niched. So that is the definition of niche. And I think in terms of my own thoughts on it are that you need to start with some sort of niche. Otherwise, it's difficult for clients to be able to find you, and it's difficult for you to actually explain what it is you're doing to potential clients such that they're interested to work with you. Because if you're doing any type of coaching, then often it's difficult for clients to engage with that. So I think starting out with a niche is a good move. And as I mentioned earlier, following your passion and expertise is a good way to start this. So, I was very passionate about career coaching, a certain client within career coaching. So that's where I started with my niche. But that obviously that's different for everybody. So think about the things that you're passionate about and where your expertise is, and that will give you a clue as to where you might want to start with your own particular niching. I wouldn't recommend that you follow everybody else in terms of the niches that other people are going for, unless that is a particular niche area that you are interested in which case that's okay as well. One thing that people worry about with niching is that if they niche down to a certain category, they're worried that rules out other people that will become their clients. Two things here really. One is that once you niche down, it's easier to find clients that want to work with you. That's just because what you're offering is much more attractive to them. So they find you anyway. And just because you niche down, secondly, it doesn't mean that clients don't want to work with you. So I work with lots of people that are not in my niche, actually. So people contact me, I left university 5 years ago and, I need some support in my career, or, I've been made redundant, I need some support in my career. So they're not in my niche. That doesn't mean that they don't find me. So don't worry about niching down. I would suggest follow your passion, niche in an area you think you can add some value to, and see how you get on. You can always change your niche. You don't have to stick with it. So you've got flexibility to change anything actually within your coaching business. That's a good rule of thumb, really, that decisions you make early on in your coaching business, they're not for life. You can change them. You can mix it up. It's your business. You can do what you want with it. So don't feel like if you make a change that the the marketing and coach police are going to come knock on your door and say, hey, you said you're going to be working with, women returning after a career break. And now you've started working with, retired people, so you can change whatever you want to about your business. And I think niche is a good area really where you could move within some different niche areas, and that would be perfectly okay.
Thank you for your openness and with that advice, Mark, because I think it's really important to remember that you're not tied to anything. One of the wonderful dynamics of the coaching profession is that it is a very development-focused career path. And as you learn and grow and as your experience builds, your interests will change, your expertise will change. And as you evolve and as your coaching practice evolves, you should be taking a look at how you're positioning your business, and the niche is one of the things that may just need to move on. So that, I think, is a great thing for both new and long-term coaches to be hearing. So thanks for sharing it. I also love how you position niching as a way to start to articulate your proposition and to think about the things you're passionate at, or you have an innate skill in, or previous experience if you've transitioned to coaching as a career from another career. Those are all guiding stars for where you could be working. And if you think of niching also as a way of building your proposition, effectively your brand as a coach, let's think about marketing a little bit. What ways are there to attract clients?
Yeah, that's the that's the golden question, isn't it?
It is.
Particularly because many coaches start out with a bit and sometimes a lot of imposter syndrome, don't they? And this leads to overthinking and over-worrying about marketing themselves. This is what I see. This results quite often in lots of time spent perfecting their website. And I don't think necessarily spending lots of time on your website is particularly helpful. You need a website, but I don't think you need to spend as long as some people do creating that. Websites are very good for people to verify facts and just do a bit of a sense check on who you might be. But I don't think they're necessarily good places for people to find you. That's my own viewpoint. Yeah, so people with imposter syndrome also are quite anxious about putting themselves out there. And quite often they're not very bold about putting themselves out there. On the other hand, some coaches diffuse their efforts by trying to be everywhere at once. So this is the other challenge that coaches want to be everywhere. I did this. So when I first started coaching, I was on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. I was everywhere. And it didn't work for me. I don't think it does work unless you've got some person that's working on the side helping you with all this. It's very difficult to maintain a presence on all those social networks. So I would make a recommendation to choose one or maybe two at the most social networks to be on. I'm now just on LinkedIn. I don't really go on any of the other social networks, and that works for me because I can spend enough time on LinkedIn to be able to post things on LinkedIn that might be interesting for potential clients, to manage messages and all the connection activity that goes on there. But beyond that, I haven't got time to spend on other social media. So that's my first thing really, is to try and focus on less things in terms of your marketing and try and do more on with less. So that's the first thing. I've got a few book recommendations which I'm just going to throw out there because I've read quite a few marketing books. And one in particular I'm going to say a little bit more about. So one of the books that I really enjoyed was called Watertight Marketing by Brian E. Thomas. And that is definitely worth reading. I also read the One-Page Marketing Plan, which is a very popular book by Alan Dibb. Both those two books are well worth reading. But the book I'm recommending most probably is Get Clients Now by C.J. Hayden. So Get Clients Now by C.J. Hayden. And this book really made a big difference to me. I can still remember when I read it, actually. I'd not been getting many clients, and I was saying to my wife, I could do with getting some more clients. And we were going to Tenerife. I wanted to take some books with me to read by the pool. And this is one of the books I took with me. And I didn't spend the whole holiday reading the book and doing nothing else, but I did spend quite a bit of time reading the book and writing notes, etc. And I came back with a really solid action plan about how to get clients. It really did make a big difference with my marketing, actually. And what the book says is that try and think about an order in terms of how you do your marketing, in terms of where you market. And it lists the activities from least effective to most effective. So it talks about least effective being advertising. So in terms of getting new clients for consultants and coaches, advertising is the least effective. And that made a lot of sense to me because I had a bit of a dabble with that, but it didn't really work for me. And then it talks about, working up the ladder in terms of the most effective. The next least effective, I suppose, is promotional events. It talks about writing and publicity. Public speaking, is pretty good in terms of you can do get to evening events and go to local groups. That is quite a good way of finding clients. And then the top two, so really focusing on what are the most effective ways to market. The second best way is networking. So this is getting out there, speaking to people, saying what you do, explain how you work, talking to people. So really, people you're meeting on a daily basis, just talking to them about what you're doing, what work you're doing with your coach, and what sort of clients you're looking for. So that was the second top one. But the top one was direct contact and follow-up. So direct contact and follow-up. In other words, who do you already know that you can directly contact and have a conversation with? And it made sense to me, this really, when I read it, that those people you already know and you already have a relationship with and already know who you are, they're much more likely to either A, want to start working with you, or B, connect you with somebody that might need coaching. So I started a big list of people that I already knew. So I worked through all my contacts from my previous employment. I worked through all the people I knew on LinkedIn, in a good way, not in terms of light connections, people that I felt like I could have a conversation with. People I knew from the area where I lived in, people in my family, etc. So I made this big list of all the people that I knew, and I started reaching out and contacting, 4 or 5 people a day, just saying, this is what I'm doing. I'm a career coach, and I'm looking for clients, and this is how I can help them, etc. And that really did make a difference. It's surprising, actually. I already had that relationship with these individuals. They knew me. Hopefully, a few of them liked me and trusted me. So a lot of them did come back and say, well, actually, you know what, I'd like to have a conversation with you because I'm not really enjoying my current job, and my career's not going the direction that I would like it to go in. So can we have a conversation? So I do try and spend a lot of time speaking to existing contacts. This might be previous clients, obviously current clients. It could be ex-colleagues you've worked with, people that you know, just regularly keeping in touch with them. Not in a mithering way, but just having that conversation with them. How are you getting on? You told me last time you're going on holiday. How was that? How's your business going? So really building those relationships and keeping those relationships alive really did make a big difference in my career coaching.
That's awesome advice. I'm furiously scribbling things down there as well for myself, and we'll definitely check out those books, and we'll include them in the show notes as well. It's really important for us to consider the effectiveness of the marketing that we do. And I come from a marketing background. My default when I have free time is to spend more on marketing because it's a comfort for me. It's familiar. And I think that's also a piece of advice that I'd offer, is that don't fall into the trap of the comfort. You need to also, as you outsource the things that are not worth your time, you also need to be mindful of those things that you are doing that you shouldn't. But marketing is a necessary part of any coaching business and any business that relies on self-generation of revenue. And I love your tip about the top 2 being networking and direct contact and kind of relationship management, because it shows that there is power in the community that you already have. And even if you're in transition from a previous career, you have a network. So after we finish recording, I'm going to go back to my list and also dust off some of the imposter thinking that you mentioned earlier, because a lot of new coaches, I think, are experiencing maybe some reticence to approaching people, particularly if they're approaching them in a new persona. They may have been known as a civil engineer or a marketing executive, but when you're coming to them with a different hat on, that's a story that sometimes maybe needs a bit more confidence and direction. And the imposter thinking for new coaches and for many coaches is something that a number of guests have spoken about in previous episodes. So I think it's great to be mindful of that here as we're looking at how you can attract clients and to build that coaching brand. So that's wonderful advice for us. Thank you so much. And you mentioned earlier that there are lots of tools and programs out there that can assist us, and sometimes we do need to outsource. What are some other business management tools, programs, tips, services that you have found useful that a new coach may not yet be aware of and should be thinking about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, probably the number one thing I use is Canva. And I mean, most people have heard of Canva now, of course, but I would say that is if you took all the tools off me, that would be probably one of the few that I'd be really desperate to hang on to, because I do use Canva a lot in terms of producing nice content for social media. I use it for producing assets to share with my network and with clients. I use it to create questionnaires and all sorts of stuff, really. So I'd say that is definitely up there, one of the top things that I use. Obviously, I use things like Microsoft 365 quite a lot, and Grammarly, Calendly. So some sort of appointment-making software is very good, because what you don't want to be doing is handling lots of the grunt work when it comes to organising meetings. So Calendly is good because it means that from my website or from my LinkedIn profile, potential clients can just book themselves a discovery call, and it just pops into my calendar. And also I have it set up so they get an asset as well. So I have a little Canva created asset that gets sent to them when they book a call. And that is about how to buy coaching. So what to look for when you speak to a career coach. So they get a series of questions to ask me when I get on the call with them. So, I think hopefully they find that helpful in asking the right sort of questions. And it shows my transparency really about wanting them to choose the right career coach. So that's another one. I'm using at the moment, and this is pretty topical, of course, I'm using ChatGPT quite a lot for creating content. Not in terms of, I don't let it loose and let it create something and, just send it out there. But it's good for generating ideas. It's good to overcome the blank page. It's good for checking content and adding richness, I think. So I do use ChatGPT quite a lot. I'm still using the free version. I've not upgraded to the paid version. I do find the free version adequate really for what I'm using it for. So that is definitely a tool that I'm using regularly. I do have my own podcast. So for that, I use a company called Buzzsprout. So they're a podcast hosting company. So if you've got any listeners that are thinking of starting their own podcast, that's one to look at. They provide a lot of really rich resources of information in terms of podcasting. So I really like those guys over at Buzzsprout. And when it comes to my overall look and the presentation of my coaching to the world, I lean quite heavily on Podia. So Podia is a hosting service. So I host my website on there. I host my back episodes of my podcast. And I've got a list of resources that I've got on there as well, actually. So I did start off with a quite simple website design service at the beginning. But actually, as I mentioned earlier on, I didn't really think that just, a simple website was particularly what I wanted. So with Podia, I do have that website, but I also have the ability to offer courses, different assets on there. So the clients have a much richer experience when they actually go to my website. So they can choose to listen to podcasts. They can buy coaching, so you can actually pay for coaching on the website as well. There's a commercial aspect to it. They can look at the all the articles I've got on there that help you with your in your career, and they can download lots of free resources as well. Actually, so I do find Podia quite a good resource. It's not the only one out there. There are a few others, but that's the one I really liked actually. So and it comes with a free trial as well. So I recommend that is something that potential new coaches look at.
Fantastic. Many of the tools you've mentioned I'm using as well. And, I found it to be critical to have a scheduling tool. It really helps to give your clients some flexibility, but also to take something off of your plate, which is quite time intensive. And Canva is a marvel. Absolutely. And, I'm using ChatGPT as well. And you mentioned ChatGPT is the free version and also with Podia as well. One of the things that many new coaches will be facing is where do they invest, and considering what is worth paying for and how far you can get with the free version. So I would definitely echo your comment to start with the free stuff and see what works for you and experiment and try as many of these tools as possible until you find the right fit. Even something like video conferencing, you can go quite far with free services like Google Meet, but then if you're already using Microsoft 365, then you have Teams, or you can invest in things like Zoom or platforms which also offer course content. So it's a great reminder to be careful with our pennies as well as we look at these tools, because there's so many of them out there as well. So I think that's fantastic guidance for us as well. Building on that cost question, you have a very clear proposition, and you're also very upfront about sharing your pricing structure. And that does tend to change from coach to coach. Some people put their prices out front. Others prefer to have contact with the client and discuss it. Others you need to apply for, and you might not be learning the pricing until further downstream. One of the most challenging things I found when I started coaching was how to benchmark pricing, and then how to be confident in that pricing. And then the age-old question of whether you should put that out there front and center or wait for it to be discovered. What tips can you offer to our newer coaches on getting confident around their pricing model?
Yeah. Because we all have this angst when we first start charging clients, don't we, as to how much to charge. And I think when I first started, I went through this analysis. I did do the scientific bit, so I looked at the hourly rates, number of clients, length of working day, etc. And you can come up with a figure based on that. But ultimately, what I ended up doing was looking at who's charging the most in this area for what I'm going to be doing. Who's charging the least? What sort of prices? What's the bottom like? And I pitched myself somewhere halfway between as a starting point, because I knew that people were paying the top price. I knew people were paying the bottom. I didn't want to necessarily be either of those when I was starting out. I didn't want to sell myself too short. So I ended up going, like I say, in the middle. And that seemed to work quite well for me, actually. I was able to find clients based on that price. And so just for listeners, so you don't have to traipse over to my website to find out what price I do charge. I currently charge for a series of 5 or 6 sessions. I charge £600. So that's the current fee that I have for my main coaching program. I do have some other coaching programs as well, but just for simplicity, the main one is £600 for those 6 sessions, let's say. And that seems to work. That seems to work for me. And I think the thing about being transparent is that when somebody finds you, and if they've not already found your website, you can direct them to your website to have a look at your pricing. So if I'm doing a discovery call, I make sure people have already been to my website first. So when I get on the discovery call, I know they've seen the website. I know they've got a good idea about how much I charge. So there's not going to be a big shock. They're not going to fall off the chair when you say how much it's going to be. And I think that's that's useful because I don't want to be someone that has to put the arm up the client's back to try and get them to sign up. I want them to be, wanting to sign up. And so I didn't want to be doing any pressure tactics. I don't want to be trying to put clients or potential clients in an awkward situation. I wanted to be really transparent about how much I charged, how many sessions that would include, how long the sessions are, what's included, what's not included. And then, having a conversation with them, I think becomes much easier because in a way, you do have a discussion about the price, but by and large, they're aware of the price, and really they're just asking other questions about, whether we can work together, what will it mean, whether I can help them or not. So I think it's a good way actually of taking away the angst of having that conversation and dropping the price in the call and being transparent before they even contact you. So they've got a good idea of what to expect when they do meet up with you. So those are my tips. And like I said earlier on, you can change this at any time. So I have increased my prices once, I think, or maybe twice, where I thought I was charging slightly less than I perhaps should have been. So I did increase it. With Podia, that is pretty straightforward because you can quickly change pricing. So that's really easy. And I also offer discounts as well sometimes. So at New Year or Black Friday, sometimes I do like deals. I'll say 10% off or 15%. And that does attract people as well, people that are on the periphery that are looking for a little bit of a reason to sign up. They're then inclined to sign up with you because there's the extra incentive to get started. So I do that sometimes as well.
I think it's so important for us to be more transparent about pricing and how difficult it can be to kind of hit the mark with that. And the point you make about ensuring that prospective clients have a sense of what your pricing structure is, your fee structure is, before they go into a discussion with you, also is an efficient use of yours and their time. Because if it's something that they can't afford, that conversation doesn't take place, which saves you the time as well as theirs. So I think that's an important reflection as well, is, you are trying to find the right clients and those that are going to match with you well from a kind of chemistry connection perspective, but also it is the feasibility of that relationship as well. And airing your pricing there does help as well. You mentioned discounting, which is great. And I think that's going to get me thinking about a Black Friday offer, because this will be my first one, as I only started coaching just after Black Friday last year, once I was finished my training. But what's your perspective on pro bono coaching? So giving the free stuff to get more clients in.
Yeah. I'm so glad you've asked that question, actually, because I probably would have liked to have mentioned that in my previous answer. I actually think pro bono is important because sometimes you want to actually do work for somebody where perhaps the return isn't necessarily financial. And what I mean by that is, in most cases, when I do pro bono work, I make sure there's a decent value exchange. So in other words, it might not be me getting paid £600, for example, but it could be that I'm going to get a really good high value testimonial. I'm going to get links to the network and the connections. I'm going to get referrals. It might mean a direct link to clients straight away, actually. So I think you have to think about it really in terms of who the actual client is. If it's a deserving cause, then, so for example, let's say I end up working with a displaced worker from the Ukraine that's moved to the UK recently, for example. They are, they're unemployed and they're looking for work and looking to enhance their prospects of finding work. Then I might do that actually, but I won't necessarily push hard for value exchange because I can see that is obviously a deserving cause, and I'd be quite happy to help somebody like that. But if it was someone that was just looking for a pro bono coaching arrangement, and the cause wasn't necessarily the issue, I would definitely be looking for much more of a value exchange. So I think I'd bear that in mind for anyone thinking of doing that. When you first start, of course, as a coach, then you do lots of pro bono work. So this is quite common. you're getting experience, you're getting testimonials and recommendations, and that is the exchange you're getting, really, isn't it? But that does continue on, even when you're a professional coach. You do still sometimes do some pro bono work, and I still do some now and again. But just make sure, if you can, that the value exchange has been considered as well.
That's great advice, because harking back to the level of investment for a newer coach as well, where you can have a value exchange, you're effectively bartering maybe for another service or support in another area. That's also a great way of adding value to your coaching practice and saving your precious resources for other places. But it also is a wonderful way of building up your hours if you're working towards credentialing as well. So having there is often a criteria for a number of paid hours, but where there are opportunities for unpaid to count towards what you need to achieve a particular accreditation level, that's also something to be mindful of. So I love how you're thinking of it in the frame of the value that it's bringing. I think that's a really good piece of guidance for anyone who's working in coaching today, whether they're new or have been coaching for a long period of time. So I'm curious, Mark, how do you keep yourself growing and developing as a coach?
Yeah. So one of the biggest factors of my ability to find clients and also to enjoy my work as a career coach has been in building relationships. So don't try and do this on your own. It's a lot of fun when you're building relationships. So some of the ways that I grow and develop is through those relationships. So let me just talk you through some of the things that I do. So I'm in originally I was in a group coaching program, and this was almost a new client, a new coaching program. So get started as a new coach, and there was probably about 6 or 7 of us in the group, and we were brand new coaches, and we're working with this experienced coach, and that really sort of got us a bit of momentum at the start of our coaching work. But after about 6 months, that arrangement came to an end. However, the group of us decided to carry on seeing each other and carry on working together. Obviously, it would be no cost, of course, as well, because it was just a voluntary arrangement. So we ended up coaching each other and supporting each other and providing lots of resource support for each other. So one of my first recommendations is find a support group somewhere if you can. I've ended up actually having quite a few of these. So I've got my old group coaching program people that I see. So I still see those once a month. This is quite an international group as well. So there's someone from the US, a Dutch lady, and someone that is now living in Ireland. So there's quite a mixed group of different individuals. But I'm also part of a solopreneur group as well, like a group of solopreneurs that are looking to develop their own business. So that came about during COVID when I'm part of a speaking group, actually. So in that speaking group, which in itself is a good way to network and to grow and to develop, we practice public speaking on a weekly basis. In that group, we ended up having some people from all around the world join us. So we had 3 people from Denmark join the group. And I actually became very, very close to these 3 individuals. So we now meet each other on a fortnightly basis, and we talk about business development, about moving our business on, challenges we've got. It's almost like a mastermind group where we help each other to overcome the challenges. And we've become so friendly with each other, that so good friends, that we're actually meeting up in Berlin next month. So we've got a planned meeting. So I'm really looking forward, because I've never met them in real life. Of course, it's all been on Zoom. So we're actually meeting up. So my advice is to try and find people that you can meet on a regular basis that can support you in your work. This might be from people you train with when you are learning your coaching. It could be people you find when you first start coaching, but try and find a group, because there'll be lots of other people like you that are looking to join a group and to learn from each other about how to make a success of this coaching business. So that's one of the things I would say about growing and developing. I mean, certainly keep yourself learning and developing in terms of reading books and watching appropriate development videos and listening to audiobooks. I still do all that sort of stuff, of course, but I think you get a lot more support and development out of meeting groups. So that's my main advice.
This has been such a strong theme through the whole series so far. Everyone has referenced the importance of their coaching community and how much inspiration, support, learning they take from those networks that they have facilitated. For me, one of the best experiences of my career, I think, has been not just in coaching, but across the whole gamut, is, getting close to my cohort, my initial coaching buddies in our first working group. And we've taken so much inspiration, but also support from each other. And this has come up again and again with each of my guests. So I love to hear you saying the same, is that the coaching industry is such a giving environment, and there is so much to be learned from the people who you meet along the way. So your mastermind groups and the networks you've cultivated sound like a really powerful tool for growth, as well as the practical support and friendship that they offer. So I'm so pleased to hear this again and again from everyone, because it also is often lonely when you transition careers. You'll see that with your clients. I've certainly experienced that myself when you come from a corporate role into something where you are a solopreneur and you're relying on yourself day to day. Those communities also have that kind of practical advantage of offering you connection and support. So it's a lovely piece of advice and guidance. Are there any personal qualities or kind of resources or attributes that you think are hopeful for a new coach that they can kind of lean on when things maybe seem kind of challenging or the road ahead seems quite long?
Yeah, and the road can sometimes seem that way, can't it? It can seem like, there's a lot to get through, and maybe you're not making headway you'd like to achieve. I think you have to find your why. Why is it you're doing this? Why do you want to be a coach? Why are you setting yourself up to be a coach? And do that when the feelings are high, when you're feeling really positive, optimistic, and courageous. Write down, why is it you want to do this? Make a list of why you want to do that, and keep that list somewhere that you're going to be able to read it when things get difficult, because things will get difficult. You'll get people that, say they're going to start working with you and then change their mind and drop out at the last minute. And, it can be discouraging when you lose clients that you think you've signed up, or you lose a contract that maybe you wanted to bring you, new work. So there are definitely times when it can be challenging. So you have to go back to your why. So I think having a why is very important. But I also think you need to give yourself a long enough runway. So you need to give yourself enough time to be able to make a success of this. And I actually think people underestimate how long it does take to be successful, because generally speaking, most of what you see on social media and in the media generally tends to be the success stories, the big success stories probably. I started my coaching business and within 6 months I was making, 6 figures. Within 18 months, I was booked solid, and I've never looked back since. Are there people that do that? Of course there are. That does happen for people, but for most people, it takes longer to achieve the success they're seeking. So, give yourself a long enough runway. Don't think this is going to be a short success story. If it is, then great, congratulate yourself. But give yourself enough time to be successful. And I think that is often overlooked by people. I overlooked it. I remember when I first started coaching, and bear in mind, it was challenging because I left my organization in October 2019, and I started coaching in February, March 2020. So just as the pandemic was hitting, I was starting looking for clients. So I had it very challenging. But I'd made, I think it was like a 3-year plan, something like that, of how I was going to be earning the same amount of money as I was in my previous job, which was a good job, within 3 years. And I look back and that just wasn't realistic. So you have to think realistically about what's possible. Give yourself long enough to be able to achieve the goal you're setting yourself, and be able to go back to your why when you need to keep you on track.
That's sparking some more curiosity in me. And I think it's great guidance that you should be mindful that success doesn't necessarily come immediately, and the importance of having a plan and working towards goals and defining, what that success looks like for you. So I'm curious, Mark, how does success look? How do you measure how healthy your coaching business is, or how happy you are with how your coaching is proceeding?
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? Because and this is obviously a very personal thing, isn't it? We all have to create our own version of what success means. What does success mean to me? Success means that I'm regularly picking up new clients, that they're the clients that I like working with. It's interesting work, that the conversations we're having are interesting and enjoyable, that I'm getting clients to a point where they want to get to at the end. So there's an element of them achieving what they want to achieve in our coaching work. So it's really about, that is the sort of ingredients, if you like, of what success is like. But I suppose it's more of a feeling about how it's going generally, how I'm feeling about my practice. Am I still enjoying getting up every day doing coaching? Do I still enjoy those conversations? Am I relishing the next contracts with another company for providing coaching services? Those things, you have to pay attention to them, because it's very easy, as I know as a career coach, to drift into not enjoying the work as much as you first thought you were enjoying it, and suddenly you find yourself not enjoying it. So enjoyment and happiness and fun are all part of what I think are what success is all about. And the ingredients are, healthy workload, interesting clients, good work, and a feeling of satisfaction achieving what I've set out to do with the clients. They're all things really that I would say help me to feel like I've succeeded.
I love that perspective, and it's an excellent one for us to kind of wrap up our conversation with, because you started out by saying, when we talked about the degree of authenticity a coach can look to bring to their coaching practice, how important it was to take pleasure from your work. So moving beyond, the standard kind of success factors for many people in terms of, money or time spent or the material trappings that come with those things, but focusing on the value that you are giving to your clients, but also the value that you are taking for yourself from your coaching practice is a beautiful way of thinking about success. And Mark, you've offered us so many gems throughout this conversation. And I'm going to be hard now and ask you if there is one pearl of wisdom you would leave us with that you can offer to a new coach, what would that be?
I would say be authentic. So clients are seeking guidance, not just from experts, but from genuine, relatable individuals who understand their journey. So stay true to yourself and your unique coaching style. Share your personal experiences thoughtfully, always with clients' interests in mind, of course. And lastly, remember that the coaching journey is not about you having all the answers. It's about empowering your clients to find their own solutions.
Fantastic. Where could people go to find out more about you or get in touch, Mark?
You can find me at bravocoaching.co.uk is my website. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. And my email address is mark@bravocoaching.co.uk.
Well, thank you so much for your insight and your openness. And I think the degree of reflection that you've brought to your coaching journey, but to also the tips that you are sharing so openly with our audience today, I think will be of great value to not just new coaches, but also existing. So thanks so much for being my guest on Getting Started as a Coach, Mark.
Thanks, Simone.
In today's episode, I spoke with Mark Crossfield, who really helped us explore some of the tools that help a coach get started. And he talked from the philosophical to the practical, why it is we coach and how you should set yourself up to enjoy your work, but also the value of being able to recognize where your time is spent and some of the practical tools that we can use to be more efficient and mindful in our coaching practice. He also shared the know, like, trust formula to get yourself out there and build your coaching brand and initiate your marketing, but also the importance of focusing on less when it comes to marketing and really looking at what works for you efficiently to get your name out there and attract more clients. He also approached head-on the sometimes contentious topics of pricing and niching, so those will be great inspiration to anyone who's wrangling with those two topics, and shared with us the importance of the coaching community. His final advice on how to keep yourself motivated about capturing why you coach is a great reminder of what to do on a tough day as you think about your coaching journey. Thank you for listening to another podcast by the Association for Coaching. For 20 years, our purpose has been to inspire and champion coaching excellence, advance the coaching profession, and make a sustainable difference to individuals, organizations, and society. To find out more about the AC and our member benefits, follow us on LinkedIn or explore our webpage at associationforcoaching.com. There, you can keep up to date with our latest podcast episodes, enjoy the wealth of digital learning offerings, and gain insights from our Coaching Perspectives magazine.